everyone, Elodie here, and welcome to a new episode of the Pint of Science podcast. Today we are with Cristina Perez. Hi, Cristina.
Hello.
I said Perez with a very French accent.
That's fine.
And Shaline Fazal. Hi, Shaline.
Hello.
So, Cristina, you're the chapter manager for Sheffield. You're gonna, for East Midlands in Pint of Science. You're gonna explain all of that to us just after. And Shaline, you're the coordinator for Pint of Science Cambridge. So Those are the Pint of Science titles and things you do, and you're going to explain it to us later. But what is your day job? You know, it feels a bit like you're a superhero. By day, you're Clark Kent, and who are you by night? So what kind of Clark Kent are you by day? Maybe Cristina, you can explain.
Yes. So my alter ego is I'm a researcher at the University of Manchester. I looked into genetics of tumor predisposition syndromes, basically just looking for DNA changes that cause certain syndromes, and also looking at the differences between, certain changes might produce a type of tumor or a tumor that's maybe more aggressive. And so that kind of thing. So that's kind of my day job at the moment.
Okay.
That sounds so much cooler.
And you, Shaline?
Mine's slightly different. I am currently a postdoc at the University of Cambridge. I have two slightly different hats on. So one, I worked around Huntington's disease and looked at seeding and propagation in that, because people seem to think it could be prion-like disease, but very split field. And now what I'm mainly focused on is stem cell therapies in Parkinson's disease, which is super cool, especially now that there's a lot of clinical trials that are going on around it. And I've slightly changed tact in the last couple of days. So I've taken on a research manager position as well. So I've got several hats on.
Okay.
That is also super cool.
Yeah, it is really super cool. So you're both into science. So this is your day job. And for Pint of Science, so I said your titles, but what are you actually doing? So Shaline, do you want to start?
That's a very loaded question.
Yes.
What am I actually doing? So I got asked to take this on from people last year who were our coordinators. And I think they saw the enthusiasm of wanting to really organize stuff, even though I wasn't an official team relay. So what I've been doing currently is, obviously we're at the phase of, getting your volunteers together, organizing them into different teams, trying to figure out, what themes should we run based on how popular they were last year. So we've managed to successfully do that. I've got a decent amount of volunteers. The problem is that when you have one theme that is not as engaged, so I'm currently trying to juggle and figure out whether I give two themes more nights so that they can have more events. And currently I've managed to secure all the venues, which I thought I'd take the stress off from the teams, because when I did it last year, that was the biggest stress, is going back and forwards of, is the venue going to reply? Can we do this? Can we not? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now.
So basically a coordinator is the person in the city that helps the team organize the events.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. I would basically go to the equivalent of Cristina for advice and help.
Yes. Yeah, and then we have what we call the event managers, which are the people that are actually finding the pubs, normally finding the pubs and finding the speakers as well, right?
Yeah.
And running the nights. And so you, Cristina, you're, I said, Shaline, she started to introduce that. So you're chapter manager. What is it exactly?
Yes.
What does it mean?
Well, yeah, I know. Well, I always say that my job is very easy because I basically rely on the coordinator. So a chapter manager is basically there to support the coordinators, to do everything that they need to do, to direct their teams and organize their events, and liaise with the central team, which is sort of kind of helping out with all the running the website and the publicity sometimes, and communication, contact with possible sponsorships, all those things that are kind of run by the central team. And so the chapter managers are kind of the go-to people and the first point of contact basically for the coordinators, the city coordinators, if they have any issues or questions or they need support in something. So we're kind of there to help, or we try at least to answer any questions and to sort of like make things as easy as possible and help them run things as smoothly as possible.
Yeah, it's like that, exactly. And it's regional, so coordinators for one city and chapter
Yes.
managers for several cities. So it's more like,
Yes.
yeah, you have little region with all your cities that you're trying to help and coordinate.
Yes. So
yeah, because it became so big that we need that kind of organization, right?
yes, exactly. Because we have like, I don't know, is it 52 cities now, or is it more than that?
No, it's a bit
always
less in UK. In UK, I think it's 39 this year.
Okay.
It's not that many in the UK.
I'm going way above.
Yes. No, but I think
Yeah.
it was more than that before COVID, and now it's back to 39, which is already quite a lot. Because for those who listen to us that are not really sure how the festival is going, you have several cities at the same time, and each city you have several pubs going on. And then if you look at the world's kind of point of view, you have several countries also at the same time. So the scale is crazy. So even if it's 39 cities, it's not just 39 events, it's a lot of events actually to deal with. So, okay, thank you for sharing what you're doing in Pint of Science. It's quite interesting how we're trying to scale from event managers, which are the people that are actually organizing, like properly being there, running the nights. And then you have the coordinators that are coordinating, like hence the name, the cities and the teams. And sometimes, like you do, Shaline, also organizing because some teams need really help and feels like it's helping them more and removing some stress out of them. And you have the chapter manager and then the national team basically that organizes everything. So this is your superhero work.
Well, we're allowed to flip it onto you because technically you're the mega superhero out of all of us.
No, Praveen Cole is the mega superhero. She's the founder of Pint of Science UK and the director.
I just want to say, yes, if we're going to use kind of superhero analogies, I mean, she's kind of the director of the League of Justice or something
Yes,
like that.
exactly.
Like she is the kind of top. It's our M or
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm running out of analogies, but
Yeah,
something
no,
like
exactly. Exactly.
that.
And so I'm the international director, so and also the French director. So I'm the Pravin in France, and I help new countries as well. So every time you see a new country popping in, it means I babysitted them to create the festivals from scratch, which is a bit of challenge as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, but it's pretty cool because Pint of Science, you have different roles and you can go from one to another. So we're gonna discuss about that in a minute. Actually, how you don't always start coordinator. Sometimes you start event manager. I started actually in a weird role because I was university coordinator. So when we started Pint of Science, we had event managers, but we didn't have city coordinator like you, Shaline. It was more like by university. So I started organizing UCL in London. That was the first year, 11 years ago. First time I did it. And then I went on creating the French branch. But it's quite interesting how even internationally, it's quite fun to see how people are moving from being a speaker sometime in one country and then bringing it, for example, Singapore. She was a speaker in Paris and then she started, she wanted to bring it in Singapore. So she created it in Singapore. And some people, are moving from one place to another. It always feels like this game. I don't know how it's called in English. It's Seven Family in French. Shaline, maybe you can help.
Je sais famille. Yeah, there's not the equivalent in.
So basically, it's like, you have a family and you're asking for like, oh, from this family, I want the granddad, and you're exchanging cards until you have the full family. And it feels really like Pint of Science. We're doing that with everyone, and it's amazing. So it's an amazing network of volunteers that are organizing the festival. I was talking about the very beginning. So the question is, how did you find out about the festival the very, very first time? So who wants to go first?
I think Cristina should go first.
I'll go.
Yeah.
So I was at Imperial when, so I was working with Praveen and Misha in the same department. With Praveen, the same group as well, when this idea came about. And I mean, I will not relate this because they've already talked about it in another podcast
Yeah.
episode, and it's brilliant. But I was there, and so they sort of basically recruited from their pool of colleagues. They came
Yeah.
out, they told us, look, we have this idea. Do you want to, do you want to do it with us? And we said yes, okay. And like you said, Elodie, at the beginning, it was all kind of like, well, who wants to do this? And so I was doing publicity coordinator that year with other people, and I was helping with different pubs in London as well. And that one year we only had a few Universal. We had Imperial and
So you
UCL
had
and King's College in
Kings,
London, and then Cambridge and Oxford. I think that was it.
Cambridge and
So
Oxford. Yeah,
it was very, very small compared to what it is now.
it was
So
small and
yeah.
messy.
But it was great. I think even from that moment, we kind of knew this is a great idea, particularly when we, like when we managed to just get to the point of do the events, and
Yeah.
it just blew up. It was amazing. Like I remember just Twitter, like people kind of tweeting at the same time, and everybody kind of coming together, and it just became this kind of thing. Even at that point, when it was kind of like a small thing, but it was really, really interesting. Like the vibe was beautiful. So yeah, that was my kind of first encounter with Pint of Science.
So from the very, very, very beginning.
Yeah.
Mine is kind of from the beginning as well, just a different angle. So I wasn't in the heat of it, but I was in the same lab as Elodie when she took on organizing UCL way back when. And it was mainly through her. So I was vicariously living through her, all the organization. So I'm going to go with, I've been involved in Pint of Science since the very beginning, from like
In a way.
behind the scenes, desperately like, oh, so what designs have you gone with? And oh, what speakers are you going to choose? And then, ever since, like, I've either gone to the events year on year, and what I love is the diversity. So, like, whether it's the diversity in the different speakers or the themes, and you can learn so much stuff about something you have zero clue about. Like, I walk out, I remember, I think 2 years in, I'd gone, I think maybe the 2014 or 2015 one, gone to a astronomy one, and I thought, oh yeah, I've walked out an astronomist now. I know what I'm talking about. So yeah, mine is through Elodie. I've like lived vicariously.
Yeah, and you started. It's quite cool because you started as attendee. Actually, you went to the first ones.
Yeah,
and now you're organizer. So I quite like as well how we're recruiting people, and that's quite often that are there that are listening to Pint of Science, and then become
like Cristina was saying, it even from a small and, like you said, messy idea, it's clearly so good that it manages to keep people on. So it's not as if you do it once and then you're like, okay, that's enough. But you can have people like me who've gone from the very bottom attendee sort of level and then worked upwards, so to speak, or you've stayed at the top and then like you've moved across. And yeah, so I think that's actually the nicest thing about Pint of Science.
Yeah, and people moving countries and still doing it as well. I think that's amazing because it really feels like it's not because you're moving away, then actually you stop doing it. And I think, Cristina, you didn't move away from country, but you moved from cities. And I think Pint of Science helped you in a way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. We did that one 2013, I think, was the first one. And in 2014 I moved cities. So and I had a baby, and then I had we moved cities. So my partner, who's also a researcher, and he had a postdoc. He was working as a postdoc at the university in Sheffield, and so we just moved because we were in different cities and we had a baby, and that was kind of untenable. So when I finished my postdoc at Imperial, I thought, okay, well, I'll move to Sheffield, and that was really tricky because I was a little bit stuck. I didn't know where else to go. It was really difficult to find other positions within research. I was a little bit disconnected, and Pint of Science. So I had a little bit of a hiatus in that year. And then in 2016, Praveen contacted me to say, do you want to come back and help us if you have time? And I thought, yes, I've got loads of time. Of course I want to come. And it was such a great connection to go back and to realize, like being a scientist is not it's not just being in the lab or being, like
Yeah.
writing something and publishing papers. It's so much more than that, and it's so empowering. And it was so lovely to have that sense of community as well with the audiences and with the coordinators and with the speakers. And it was really, really important to me, and it's just really helped me through really hard times as well. And it was so, like, it was kind of the steady thing, and it was really, really important for me to have that, and I will kind of forever be grateful for that. It was just lovely.
This is actually, I'm moving away now, and the first thing I looked was, is there a Pint of Science team in the city? And there is, and I'm like, okay, this is good. This is going to be my first social contact.
Absolutely. It's like a family. Like you said, like even just going to a different country and thinking, oh, maybe I can start Pint of Science here, or maybe.
Yep.
And I think is one of the greatest things, to be able to create this platform where people can say, and I think that was actually, it is our mission, and it's officially our mission, isn't it? But where people can say, oh, I want to do this. How can I do this? And for Pint of Science to say, oh, here it is. There's kind of the template. You can do it. Go ahead, and it's almost like a Lego set. It's like, there you go.
Exactly.
You put the bits together, and we help you with the kind of overall blueprint of it, and that's been amazing. Yeah,
exactly. And for you, Shaline, is there anything that Pint of Science has done? Like, did it help you in a way?
Oh, it did a lot, in the sense of very valuable in terms of learning new stuff.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's a social event where, you kind of explore outside of what you do. And it's a breath of fresh air, because you become one of the lay audience for a lot of the topics and a lot of the themes, which as a scientist you kind of forget, because you're so driven and so focused on your project. You only talk to people who are working in the similar field, so it's all very high level, and sometimes you want a bit of a step back, and you think, oh yeah, this is perfect. It's a chilled atmosphere. You look at scientists a lot of the times. I remember when I was doing my PhD, and you had professors walking past you, and you just think, oh, they're unattainable. I'm never going to get there. And then you go to Pint of Science, and I remember Matthew Walker did one, I think, once. And
the first year.
Yeah, and I kind of thought, oh, he's just come to me and is having a conversation with me, but I'm like a PhD student. Why does he want to talk to me? I think that was the biggest thing. Is it's one of those like very surreal moments where you just put a different hat on, and there's just no judgment. You can take as much from it as you want. I think that's been the main thing, and it's clearly kept me interested enough that when I'm not, attending, I'm wanting to try and be an event manager. And then when I got asked to do coordinator, I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's been a few years you want to participate, right?
Yep.
Organizing it.
Yeah, a long time. It was because it started through you, and I was like, I want to be involved in all of this. But yeah, it's so popular that a lot of the times it was, we've got too many volunteers, but obviously keep trying. And so I was like, yes, I'm going to keep trying. So yeah, I made it, and I'm super happy I made it.
And you made it to coordinator.
Exactly. So no, it's definitely a positive thing. And a lot of people I've talked to about Pint of Science or who've approached me think exactly the same, that it's just a very different thing. So it's absolutely genius idea.
It's and I think the thing that I'm the most happy / proud, I quite find it fun, is when it still happens. I go to places like, I gave a lecture on science communication a few months ago, and it was PhD students class. And then one of them was like, oh yeah, one really good place to give talks if you want to start science communication. It's really relaxed. It's Pint of Science, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, yes, I love it. And the guy looked at me and he was like, who's this crazy lady? Because I was in the audience and I didn't give my talk yet, so he didn't know who I was. And he was a bit looking at me like, okay, she's really keen on Pint of Science, but whatever. And then I gave my talk, and I started explaining what I was doing in Pint of Science. And he was like, oh, like why I was doing it. Say, oh, yeah, okay. So it was really cool because, I still hear people talking about Pint of Science to me or to others. And I'm like, yeah, this is really great. And I think it went around quite a lot. And now it's, at the very beginning, it was a bit more complicated to get the word about it. But now you actually have people talking about Pint of Science to you, and it's always good fun because it's like, yeah, I know Pint of Science. Yeah, I've heard of it slightly. Not sure exactly what it is, but yeah, I've heard of it. And it's pretty fun when that happens.
And making
But
connections too.
yes, making connection is well, definitely. This is like a huge network, and for you, definitely, Cristina. And anything else because you connected. You've had various roles, right? So you were a publicity manager at the very beginning.
So I was at the very beginning. I was publicity coordinator.
Yes.
But then I've been chapter manager since I came back in 2016. But also I think in general, even though I've been involved with Pint of Science because it's so big, like you said, it's got to be this big thing. It's impossible to meet everybody who's been involved, and
Oh yes.
and so I sometimes hear of people, or I kind of I discover some researchers from the podcast even, and just kind of following their work, and it's just so interesting as well to kind of have those connections. I met one of the coordinators who was previous coordinator in one of the cities. It was not my city, but now I kind of follow them on Twitter because they're just amazing. And it's just one of those things that, like you connect with people in that way. And I feel like with Shaline, what you were saying about, people who seem unattainable, but really they're just kind of normal people, right? And I feel like that's also part of what Pint of Science brings,
Exactly.
to try and get people
Connect.
to understand that, yes, but also the audience to understand that researchers and scientists, they're all normal people within your communities. They're your friends, they're your family. It's all the same. They're not, or we're not kind of like this unattainable group over there. We're all the same kind of thing. Like it's not. So that's been brilliant. I think that's another thing that I got from Pint of Science. That sort of connection is lovely.
All of that is very, very cool. And we're actually approaching the end of the podcast. So my last question is going to be, do you have any anecdotes, something fun that happened or not fun or whatever, but, something that happened that really like you kept in mind from those years in Pint of Science?
I have two. Am I allowed two?
Yes, you're allowed
Yes.
So one is more of a fangirling moment where
Go for it.
I cannot remember for the life of me which year it was, but I
Yeah,
have a
that's fine.
feeling it might have just been Praveen who was on the BBC One show.
Yeah, the BBC, 2015, I think.
Yeah. And I remember sitting in front of the screen and I was like, oh, I know about this. And I was like, I know who that person is. And then through Elodie, I know exactly what the process is. And now she's on TV and she's talking about it. And I just thought, one day, maybe I'll actually get to meet her. So that's still on my list. I haven't quite made it there, but I'm hoping I will get there.
Okay.
And another one, which is a funny story. Well, I hope it's funny. It was from last year when I was event manager. One of the speakers that I suggested for one of the nights is someone I know very well. So she's a PhD student who's working around the gut microbiome in Parkinson's disease. And she's designed her own poo scale.
Oh, wow.
I've seen that on Twitter.
Exactly. So Marta, I thought, would be perfect for this. And she's Portuguese, so she's very animated, great at presenting. And I remember her saying to me, okay, so I need to do this. So what is expected of me? And I said, well, it's very informal. The idea is that it's a lay audience and you need to kind of relay what you're doing. And she decided to do the blue poo challenge. However, with a twist, because usually you're supposed to add the blue dye to muffins, I think, and eat the muffin and then relay the information of how long the digestion has taken. But she decided.
So how long you had blue in your poo, right? Okay.
Basically, yes. Because one of the data points she was showing as part of her PhD is that she's done that with her cohort. So she showed a few graphs and then she basically ended her talk with, well, you guys can take part as well. And please feel free to let me know what the trajectory is. So what she did was she literally put blue food dye on every individual's table and was like, just add a few drops to your drink. The amount of audience participation was incredible, and the amount of blue tongues you had across the audience, and even better, she actually got people's responses after the event.
Oh my God.
Okay.
This is
I just
amazing.
like amazing. So
So
that's
people were actually replying to say, it's still
yeah,
blue.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
still
yeah,
blue.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
great. That's brilliant.
So I'd say
I
those are
love
my
this.
two standout.
Okay, okay.
Oh,
This
that's
is this is a really
amazing.
great one. Christina, do you have any to end of the
Ah,
podcast on an anecdote kind of thing?
I related all of them. But one of the things that I always remember about that first year, we submitted an application. I mean, this is not because I'm petty and I don't take rejection um, lightly, but we submitted an application for one of the major funders. I'm not going to say who,
Yep.
to get funding for to get the festival going, and we didn't get it. And one of the reviews, or the comments from one of the reviewers, was, there are just too many
Yep.
events like this before, like it's just kind of the same as the other things that are available. And I always go back to that, because I
Mm.
just know, I mean, how wrong could you possibly be?
You know what? You might have been the same person actually. But yeah, I had exactly the same thing the first year. I went to see someone, and I'm not gonna say the name, but that is very important in science communication in London.
Mm.
And that person told me it's not gonna work. And I left. I don't know how it was for you, but I left the meeting crying, and I told Misha and Pravin that it was okay, but they couldn't help us money wise. And I never said that they said it wouldn't work because it was already too crowded or whatever. And then when it worked, I told them, and I was like, yes.
Yes. Well, yeah, in my case, because it was just the application, I never knew who the reviewer was.
Yeah.
It was just kind of
Okay.
like the application came
Yeah.
back, and that was one of the comments. I don't, like, because Misha and Praveen were so positive, and
Yeah.
they made it work too.
Yeah.
So it felt like, well, whatever, but it always makes me like think back, and how,
Yeah.
like, clearly, no, they didn't understand what the idea was, because it is genuinely something else. I just feel like it's always kind of been something completely different. It's very unique.
Yes.
Absolutely. So yeah, so that's
It
the
is.
thing that kind of stayed with me, like, you were wrong,
Yes.
mystery reviewer.
And yeah, Mr. Reviewer, you were wrong, and we did it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing. So this year, I'm just going to end up by saying the dates for this year. So this year is 22nd to 24th of May. I'm not sure when the podcast is going to be released, but before that. So in April, the program is going to be out. And I hope you enjoyed the episode. I really enjoyed talking to you both. It's really nice having your point of view and your history with
Thank
Pint of Science.
you.
So thank
Thanks
you,
for having
Christina.
us.
Thank you, Shaline.
Thank you so much.
We will be back soon with more stories. Bye.
Bye.